Hello, everyone. Today we have our third presentation on the topic of epistemology or theory of knowledge. And after that, we will open our floor for general discussion. My introduction will be brief. So as always, we will begin with some general remarks about epistemology and what place it does occupy in philosophy in general. The Oxford Dictionary describes epistemology as, I quote, the theory of knowledge, especially with regards to its methods, validity, and scope, and the distinction between justified belief and opinion. Epistemology is one of the four traditional branches of philosophy, along with metaphysics or ontology, ethics, and logic. Two of the many areas of epistemological research include knowledge of the other minds and of the external world. The problem of the origin of knowledge produced the debates between modern rationalists and modern empiricists about the innate and or acquired character of cognition. Abdul-Baha distinguishes between two forms of knowledge, subjective and objective, or existential and formal. That is intuitive knowledge and conceptual knowledge. This comes from some answered questions. I quote, "The knowledge that people generally have of things consists in conceptualization and observation. And the scope of this knowledge is quite limited, as it is conditioned upon acquisition and attainment," end quote. The other kind of knowledge, Abdul-Baha continues, I quote, which is existential or intuitive knowledge, is like man's knowledge and awareness of his own self. This knowledge is not the result of effort and acquisition. It is an existential matter. It is pure bounty, end quote. Intuitive or inner knowledge is refined and is perfected by means of meditation, which, as Abdul-Baha points out, I quote, is the key for opening the doors of mysteries. In that state, man abstracts himself. In that state, man withdraws himself from all outside objects. In that subjective mood, he is immersed in the ocean of spiritual life and can unfold the secrets of things in themselves, end quote. I would like to bring your attention to this particular term, things in themselves. This is a Kantian term, and we may discuss that later during our discussion, general discussion. The intuitive abilities of the human mind can be realized both in conscious and unconscious states, especially during sleep, when humans see dreams and visions and could even involve communication with departed souls. Here is another quote from Abdul-Baha. "A conversation can be held, but not as our physical conversation. The heart of man is open to inspiration. This is spiritual communication. As in a dream, one talks with a friend while the mouth is silent. So it is in the conversation of the spirit," end quote. That was a quotation from Paris Talks. Human intuition is also the source of revelation, which is reserved only for special human beings who are called in the Baha'i writings the manifestations of God. They are known in religious history as the founders of great spiritual traditions. As Abdul-Baha explains, I quote, "Since those sanctified realities, the universal manifestations of God, encompass all created things, transcend and discover all existing realities, and are cognizant of all things, it follows that their knowledge is divine and not acquired. That is, It is a heavenly grace and a divine discovery, end quote. As a result, the universal manifestations of God are aware of the truth underlying the mysteries of all created things, and thus they found a religion that is based upon and consonant with the prevailing condition of humanity. That was also a quotation. Now let's briefly talk about the four sources of human cognition. Abdul-Baha discusses the four sources of human knowledge: sensitive perception, rationality, inspiration or intuition, and tradition. He argues that all those standards of knowledge are liable to error. Senses can betray us. Our intellect could be mistaken as well. Sacred traditions, which are the result of rational comprehension of holy texts, could also be wrong because of the general fallibility of human reason. Even intuition or illumination cannot be fully relied upon, since those, I quote, promptings of the susceptibilities of the human heart, as Abdul-Baha cautions, are sometimes satanic. How are we to differentiate them? How are we to tell whether a given statement is an inspiration and prompting of the heart through the merciful assistance or through the satanic agency, end quote. That was a quotation from the Promulgation of Universal Peace. Now, about limitations of human knowledge. Human knowledge is limited in two other respects. First, we have no access to the essences of the objects of cognition, only to their qualities. Abdul-Baha says, I quote, "There are two kinds of knowledge: the knowledge of the essence of a thing and the knowledge of its attributes. The essence of a thing is known only through its attributes. Otherwise, that essence is unknown and unfathomed," end quote. As a result, we do not have a direct knowledge of the essence of nature, our own selves, and of divinity. Second, lower forms of life cannot comprehend the higher ones. Or, as Abdul-Baha puts it, I quote, "The difference in degree is ever an obstacle to comprehension of the higher by the lower, the superior by the inferior." He further explains, a lower degree cannot comprehend a higher, although all are in the same world of creation, whether mineral, vegetable, or animal. In the human plane, we have knowledge of a vegetable, its qualities and product, but vegetable has no knowledge or comprehension whatever of us, end quote. Given all those limitations of human cognition, how can we be assured that the knowledge we acquire is accurate? Abdul-Baha recommends combining all four methods of knowledge in order to arrive at the certainty of truth. As he puts it, I quote, "A statement presented to the mind, accompanied by proofs which the senses can perceive to be correct, which the faculty of reason can accept, which is in accord with traditional authority and sanctioned by the promptings of the heart, can be adjudged and relied upon as perfectly correct," end quote. Yet, in comparison with divine illumination, human cognition is still inadequate and unsatisfactory. As Abdul-Baha says, I quote, "Briefly, the point is that in the human material world of phenomena, these four are the only existing criteria or avenue of knowledge, and all of them are faulty and unreliable. What then remains? How shall we attain the reality of knowledge? By the breaths and promptings of the Holy Spirit, which is light and knowledge itself." He concludes, "All available human criteria are erroneous and defective, but the divine standard of knowledge is infallible," end quote.